Good morning. I'm Carmen García. I come from the Spanish Institute of Oceanography. I work in the climate change group, and at present I'm the director of the Oceanographic Center in Malaga. But I'm here as a member of the European Marine Board Communications Panel that is in charge of the organization of CommOCEAN. Welcome. Thank you. I'll wait a minute. First of all, I would like to give a very warm welcome to all of you to this beautiful city, and especially to our co-host, the University of Montpellier, that is a founding member of French Marine Universities Network, its Geosciences Department, Marbec and Ifremer, and thank you particularly to Pierre-François Besnet for his incredible work and enthusiasm preparing this conference. During the next days, we meet here in Sète, finally in person after these strange years, in the CommOCEAN22 conference for talking about scientific communication, to talk about the way in which we, scientists and communicators, transmit and disseminate the knowledge that our systems of science and technology produce at present and have produced along the history. The way in which the information is transmitted, the way in which we express and verbalize our ideas, the way in which such ideas are translated into words and images, finally become a fundamental part of them. An initial concept, an initial idea has a mere diffuse form in the mind of a scientist, will finally have a different form in the mind of the receptors, in the collective imaginary of society, depending on the way scientists translate it into the colloquial language. We have to make sure that scientific knowledge and progress is transmitted faithfully to society. But it's not enough. We have to make sure that this knowledge reaches as many people as possible, and finally to the whole population. This must be an indispensable objective that will contribute to the equality and social justice in the world. A society which has no access to the knowledge is a society that can be easily manipulated and therefore is not really a free society. A society where only economically privileged sector has access to the knowledge, especially the scientific knowledge, is not an egalitarian and fair society. This need for a rigorous dissemination that reaches to all sectors of society is at present of paramount importance. It has become urgent. The scientific and technological development has reached levels not only unprecedented in the history of mankind, but also unthinkable 100 years ago. Our present scientific development has given to the mankind the capability for shaping the whole planet according to our convenience. We can cure diseases that were incurable some decades ago. The life expectancy has increased dramatically. Our capacity to predict and prevent natural hazards has improved in such a way that thousands of lives can be saved, and the transport of persons and goods has become safe and global. There is still need for a fair distribution of welfare and the reduction of inequality around the world. But the present technological development could allow us to produce food and energy for the whole humanity. We still lack the will to solve the problem of climate change, but with the needed willingness, technology could allow us to produce green and renewable energy for the planet. Satellites, communications have interconnected the whole world, and knowledge and information can be shared in a moment between distant points of the world. We have even managed to get off our own planet, and it's very likely that we will land at Mars during the next decades. Science and technology has given us an unprecedented and immense power for the progress and the welfare of mankind, but it has also posed an unprecedented threat. We have the capacity to destroy our civilization. Maybe the power that science and technology give us has grown faster than our own capacity to manage it. Maybe we have incredible technological means, but we still do not know how to use them in such a way that they guarantee the future of our civilization and banishes the threat of a massive destruction. This is not a simple question, but certainly a part of the problem is that we, as a community, do not fully understand the scientific and technological development that we have achieved. The larger the scientific development and technological capacity, the larger should be our understanding of it. Only if our society understands what science is, what science can do for the good and for the evil, we will be able to construct a responsible world that uses knowledge for securing the future of humanity. A future that must be fair and egalitarian. Achieving this goal depends on our capacity to transmit all these scientific and technological advances and all this knowledge to the whole society. As I said at the beginning, only a knowledge-based society will be a free society that cannot be manipulated. And this is our task. And this is why all we are here, gathered here during these days to talk about science communication, ocean science communication. Welcome to CommOCEAN 2022. Thank you. And now I'm leaving the floor to Myriam. I'm sorry for my French. She's the head of Ifremer.
So welcome everyone. I would like to thank the organizer for letting me introduce these days of exchanges with a few quick words. I have the honor of hosting such an international conference for the first time in France, in Sète, thanks to the UMR Marbec. Of course, you're welcomed in the Ifremer station, but above all, you're welcomed in a project called Ifremer, and here, it's Scenario Lab. Laurent Dagorn will talk about it afterwards better than I can, but it makes particular sense to host the CommOCEAN here, because this place materially translates the strength of collaboration between research institutes that UMR, such as UMR Marbec, allow when it comes to involving all the stakeholders in infrastructures that aim to bring people together to better think about the future and to better make it understandable. The Scenario Lab has been designed for this purpose, to welcome the stakeholders involved in decision-making on the environment and maritime economy, the civil society in all its diversity, and to involve them in designing this future and what they want to do with it and to deal with it. Many of your work sequences will therefore be oriented towards the way to make science a perceptible reality for everyone. So as a preamble, let me give you a few ideas to keep in mind to perhaps guide your thinking. I will very quickly mention two French philosophers who have left their mark on the history communication by thinking a new way about the power of discourse and its link to the scientists. In The Will to Know, Foucault identified in 1976 a risk of dilution of the disintegration of the political capacity to decide because of the extension of scientific expertise and its field to the world of the living world. Because he's the only one to know, the expert is the master of his speech, but he's alone. The discourse becomes a political power when it confers the weight of the state's sovereignty on expertise. Communication is then the medium which transforms fragmented knowledge into a unified decision-making. Then in Psyche, Jacques Derrida showed that science, as a universal invented language, obviously presupposes science, but as soon as it's enunciated, it creates a new truth. In other words, the creation of a scientific discourse does not only state the scientific fact that has been demonstrated, but creates a new knowledge, a new truth, and a new reality. But it's necessary to know how to state it. This is where scientific communication comes into play, knowing how to correctly state the scientific fact in order to create a new reality in the eyes of all, one that will carry with it the decision and give back its power, not only to the expert, but also to the politician who receive it. I hope that this 2 days of work will enable you to identify the way of communicating that implements this power of language.
Thanks, Marie. And now I leave the floor to Philippe Combette, as Vice President for Partnership and Innovation, University of Montpellier.
Thank you very much to everyone, and thank you for the organization for this conference. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Philippe Combette. I'm Vice President of the University in charge of Partnership and Innovation, and I'm pleased to welcome you to this beautiful city of Sète. Mr. President Philippe was unable to join us, so he asked me to welcome you. A few words about the university, which was created in 1220, with its roots in its city and its region. It includes the oldest operating medical faculty in Europe and the oldest botanical garden in France, and has therefore been developing its training, research, and innovation capacities for over 8 centuries. The University of Montpellier, together with research organizations, institutional partners, and its international network, is conducting a scientific policy that enables research and the exploitation of its results at the highest level. We put this energy at the service of nearly 80 research laboratories and more than 2,000 researchers who produce research and that is recognized in international workings and who have created a rich, intangible portfolio. The university coordinates a permanent site with 70 million euros in annual funding for the benefits of the 16 partners who are working to reinforce the 3 pillars. Feed, for promoting an innovative agriculture to contribute to food security and environmental quality. Care, for improving human health in changing environments. And protect, for fostering a transition to an environmentally friendly society. Located near the coast, in the heart of one of the world's largest wine-producing regions, and in zones confronted by water resource challenges and the ongoing pressure of substantial population growth, Montpellier University of Excellence, in order to assert its unique identity, creates 5 key initiatives called KIM to address research, innovation, and education issues related to the territorial context. The KIM, Sea and Coast, is one of them, with the ambition of enhancing the scientific diversity of the Montpellier side in the field related to the sea and the coast, while offering a common showcase to the different actors of research and the socio-economic world in order to create a strong science society community on these issues and to make it visible and attractive on an international scale. The attention of the university is based on one fact. With its 220 kilometers of coastline, its 20 coastal resorts, its numerous lagoons and wetlands, its fishing fleet and the port of Sète, the leading fishing port in the French Mediterranean, our coastline represents a real economic asset for the Occitanie region. The scientific community linked to the sea and the coast in the coastal department of Occitanie counts more than 300 permanent scientific across all existing organizations in 20 research structures. This community is also involved in the dissemination, outreach, and communication of scientific knowledge, which is becoming increasingly important in today's society, where social inclusion is an integral part of environmental protection and sustainable development. This is particularly true for the world of ocean research, a world that is largely hidden from our view, which presents an additional challenge for the communication of marine research. Today, I am particularly honored that the University of Montpellier, the KIM Sea and Coast, and the UMR Barbec are hosting the 5th conference CommOCEAN22 at the Ifremer station in Sète. I'm sure that during this conference, organized by the Communication Panel of European Marine Board, a local swimming committee including Marbec, ERD, and Géosciences Montpellier, I would like to thank, the right words will be found, the good practices will be shared so that together we will be committed to achieving the goal of the European Union, restore our ocean and waters by 2030. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'm leaving the floor to Gilles Nicolet. I don't know if the name is correctly said. He is the chair of the European Marine Board Communication. Oh, sorry, European Marine Board. Yes. sorry.
I didn't know I was moved to the communication panel. Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here today and see a lot of familiar faces. As Carmen said, I'm Gilles Nicolet. I'm representing Ifremer at the European Marine Board, and I've been elected 4 years ago as chair of the European Marine Board. So I did already one 3 years mandate, and I have a second part. I was re-elected for a second year's mandate. So in a year and a half, you will get rid of me, so we'll be happy with that. So thank you. I'm not talking about the decade of the ocean, but it's an important. So before that, I would like to thank Maria for recalling the link between philosopher and physicist and mathematician. In fact, it's true. Foucault, for me, who did more physics and mathematics than philosophy. We know Foucault by his current, and it's very important for the wind farms, because the people believe that with a windmill, you know, a mill, that you have electricity like this, but in fact you need magnet, and this is that has been found by Foucault also. So it's a very big link between philosophy and mathematics and physicists. And I won't recall Descartes because the only one I know, but it's important. So thank you, Angel. The Marine Board, I have only a couple of minutes, so my speech is nearly over. But I have to tell you what is the Marine Board. So the Marine Board is an independent and self-sustained association and body. We have been founded in 1995, and we were a member at that time, one of the board created by the European Science Foundation. And in 2014, 2015, the European Science Foundation was over or changed the statutes, and then we have to become independent. So we became a sort of Loi 1901 association for the French people, which is a Belgium law, ESBL, which is an international for science association under the Belgium regime, because we are based in Ostend. And I have to thank Jan and Vlies, because the offices of the European Marine Board are hosted by Vlies, which is a sort of equivalent of Ifremer in Belgium. So, and it's very important for that. So what is the role of the European Marine Board? The European Marine Board has to try to advise marine research and policy needs for marine-related issues. And this is to try to make a link between science to policy. And we try to work for national policymakers and stakeholders, but also at different levels, especially for Europe, and trying to target the European research area, and especially the European Commission, where our subjects, or marine subjects, are proposed through policy brief or science brief or position papers to these peoples, to the stakeholders, and in fact the marine policy. In fact, we cover a wide range of topics, you will see, and we are constituted by 35 members from 18 countries all around Europe, so marine countries, as you can see. And we are constituted by Marine and Oceanographic Institute. We have also research funding agencies, not ANR, not the French ANR is part of European Marine Board. And we have national network of universities, and François Lallier will present you this network of university at the French level. So we have the chance to have a very strong and efficient secretariat. So you have the faces, which is led by Sheila Imans, which is the executive director of the European Marine Board. And we have 5 secretariat members, and we have the chance to have two of them today present here. I see Anna and Henrel, which is following this. And thank you, Henrel, for all you are doing. And I have to tell you that all the PowerPoint I am presenting has been done by Henrel. So the work is very easy for that. So if you are unhappy with the PowerPoint, it's not my fault. No, I'm sorry about that. It's the way the politicians do, you know. When it's positive, they take it for them. When it's negative, there's somebody who is responsible. So we provide advice. We try to provide advice. We also try to target, as I say, European Marine Board. Try to target the European Commission, also the Parliament. We are talking to the Parliament, but also at the national level, policy makers or an institution at national level, but also international level. We are recognized now like a European visible and international body. And for that, we impact the European research area and also national and an international marine strategy. I think I have to get a little bit faster. So we made some, as I say, the way we are acting is through publication, fora, but also a brown bag lunch or discussion, the way we are trying to pass the message to stakeholders and policymakers. So here you have an example of recent strategic publication. I don't know if you come with some. Yeah, so you have a part of publications here around. I recommend them. Okay, especially this one, but I think this is the one. Thank you, Benoit. Thank you. Very well organized. Université de Montpellier is very well organized. So they are quite important. I will recommend you, of course, the marine science communication, but also marine geohazards. So Carmen has talked about the geohazards and the importance of marine geohazards. And I think here in Sète you have to take care of that. I don't know if you know, the sea level rise faster than imagining. So I just rent an apartment on the marina. So I don't know how long they will survive here. So it's very important. This is a very nice document. We also have been addressing the noise, underwater noise, which is something we now the people are looking at for not only the nuclear submarines and the Russian ones, or we are hanging around, but also sometimes they look for the problem of whales and dolphins who are in the nets, or the whales who are arriving on your coast and beaches. Okay, so I'm not going to tell you all the documents, but I recommend you to look at them. And we have a communication panel, and that's something I'm very proud of, because I was at that time vice chair at the European Marine Board, starting my representation for Ifremer. And one guy from Vlies came and presented what is the communication panel. Jan says, you will heard about him. And the communication panel was a sort of working room, who was in fact created in 2006. And in 2012 and 2013, we had to decide if this is going to be sustained by the European Marine Board forever, becoming a panel of the European Marine Board. And that's what was done in 2013, 2014. And we are very happy with that, because they are doing a very good job. And not only for the European Marine Board, but for marine science, where they are communicating the marine science, especially to who we are targeting, to whom we are targeting. That means, again, marine policy, policymakers, and stakeholders. So for us, it's very important, and we are very happy to have this panel. Thank you, Carmen, to chair the panel for the European Marine Board, and thank you to all the members. We are, in fact, most of them are EMB members, communication directors, or communication representative from the 35 institutes and organizations we have around. So just to tell you that we are also one of the implementing partner for the Ocean Decade, the United Nations Ocean Science for the SDG, Sustainable Development Goal. And I didn't know that as a chair. I should know. We have been the first one who has been recognized as implementing partner. So you did, the Secretariat, a good job. And in fact, we foresight, we support, via foresight, coordination, and communication. We have also another thing that I would like to address. It's a program which is called EMBCP or Embracing the Ocean, which is a way we decided to, when we thought we were wealthy financially just before the augmentation of the money, the inflation. And so we had a sort of money in hands, and we want to spend this money for supporting artists and residents, because we thought that artistic, like philosophy, it's also something important to pass messages to policymakers or to the people, and especially to citizens, of the importance of the oceans and what we have to do to protect, restore, and look at our ocean, which are a common good, as you all know. So we have at the moment 2 artists for 1 year, and we provide them some funds for them to be able to develop their artistic work and present that to different places. There will be one dancing in UNESCO very soon in Paris. So it's done, or? It's done. Oh, okay. So I missed that. I wasn't. Unfortunately, so. Okay, so just to end, I would recommend you to sign up to the newsletter, to read the position paper and the science brief. If you are unable to read all the position paper, we do brief. So we know the policymakers, so we do 1 or 2 pages for them to give them the will to go to our position papers. I am now, just to finish, put at the disposal of as an advisor at the Prime Minister, Secrétariat Général de la Mer. And when I came, because they were talking about underwater noise, so I came with my, a position paper, and they look and say, oh, very important, but who reads that? Well, who reads that? It's too many pages. So that's one of the problems. So I think it's only scientists who read the articles, because after 2 pages, the people are fed up. It's, you have to only tweet. So it's tweet, and you see all the people going on their phone. So thank you. If you need a hard copy, you can ask them to our nice secretariat member. Anna, if you can present yourself, is here. So one of the secretariat. And Henrel, I think, I don't know if you are only 2. Okay, thank you very much, and I leave the floor to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Gilles. It's always funny listening to him. And I totally agree. We have the best secretariat in the world, especially Angel, works with me in the European Marine Communications panel. So I leave the floor. Oh, sorry, I need my glasses. Our next speaker is François Lallier from Marine Universities of France.
So thank you very much for inviting me to present very briefly the French Marine Universities Network. It's where? Oh, okay, closer. And this network is born about 10 years ago, and comprises at present 17 universities all along the coast of France, and some in the center, but with many marine stations along the English Channel or the French Manche, the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea. So, as you know, France has all these ocean borders, ocean coasts, and these universities and marine stations, our main objective is to coordinate and share the actions we have in training, of course, higher education training. That's the first mission we have as universities, but also in research, in observation of the ocean, and of course communication. In addition to our students, of course, we do a lot of actions to the general public in every of these universities, participating in events like annual events like the Science for the General Public, Open Science, and the European Nights for Researchers also in many stations. And we have in many places links with aquariums, which are very important to reach the general public. So as a university network, we are members of the European Marine Board, so I will not present that. And especially Dominique Simon is among us. And she is very active for the communication panels that we just heard about. I think there is another one. Yeah, here it is. So recently, many of our universities have recently set up federative institutes to manage their marine activities with an interdisciplinary approach. So they are listed on the left here. And I think that communication is to all kind of public is a very important aspect of these activities. So we are also involved in managing national research infrastructures like the French fleet, for example, very important. And we try as a university network to increase the action of the fleet for training young researchers and so. And members of the European Marine Board, and also other networks like Euromarine, and several European universities know that we try to direct to ocean topics. So I guess I will be finished now, and I'm here if you want to talk with me, no problem, I will be there tomorrow also. Thank you.
Thank you, Francois, and thanks for naming Dominique. I think she's a very hard worker and do a lot for communication. And now our next speaker will be Benoît Eldefons from the Geosciences Montpellier. He also can show you some of our documents as you've seen me before.
Gracias. Okay, hi. Hi, my name is Benoît, I'm a geologist. I guess, how many geologists are in the room, I mean, apart from Gilles and me? Yeah, some of the students in the back are. Okay, so it's not a shame being a geologist. I'm a marine geologist. So just to, I'm very happy to welcome you here. This started about probably 1.5 years ago, when during a meeting of the council of the French university network, Dominique was saying that they were looking for, the EMB was looking for a venue for the next meeting for CommOCEAN, and then we thought about maybe try to do it in France, and then I thought about, well, why not in Montpellier? And I'm also involved in the key initiative Sea and Coast with Laurent and 3 other colleagues. We are, as a board, we are running these initiatives. We've had some funding for the last 4 years, finding different projects. And with that, we thought we had the money actually to do it, because obviously it costs some money. So we said, okay, we'll do it in Montpellier. The first idea was to do it in Montpellier itself, actually, next to the beautiful botanic garden that Philippe was talking about earlier. Turned out that for some different reasons, it was actually not so easy to do it at this time of the year, because there is some renovation going on in these buildings. And this new building here came up. Laurent will talk about it, but we thought it was a good idea to actually do it here. So we are so pleased to welcome you and talk about science communication. One thing we wanted to do as well was to involve students, and they are in the back, as usual. Young people go in the back, and old farts come in the front. I'm old. And I thought, no, seriously, I think it's very important. There are students involved in science communication and scientific mediation formation, at master level. There are actually 2 of these in Montpellier, and we have students representing these two formations. And the idea was to get them involved and to provide them with an opportunity to talk with you, specialist experts in communication, and share ideas and experience, and so they can ask you questions and you can tell them how beautiful is what you do. So there will be a session sometime this afternoon, I think, I forgot, or at the end of the morning, I don't remember when it is. I think it's at the end of the after the coffee break, or this afternoon, today. Anyway, and also the idea is that they can interact with you guys during lunchtime and coffee breaks, so please don't be shy on both sides, actually, for the students to go and talk with people, and the other way around as well. It's very important because I think it's a unique opportunity for them to actually have this kind of interaction. And that's it. I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say. Laurent, did I forget something? Back me up, please. No? I'm done? Okay, so welcome to us. Yeah, no. I knew I was forgetting something, obviously. When you have this kind of idea, it's easy to have an idea. Oh, let's do it in Montpellier. Okay, first, let's find some money. Okay, we have some money. But then you have to do the hard work, like the ghost in work, everything that makes this actually happening and possible, and this is painful. And this is basically done by one person, who is Pierre-François, who is here. Raise your hand, please. Yeah, so please. Believe me, it was not easy. Some of the things were not too complicated. Some others were extremely painful. And I don't go into details, but that's the way it is. I mean, when you have to organize this kind of stuff, there are some things that you have to do in the shadow, and you need people like Pierre-François to actually do the work. So it's so easy for me or Laurent to be happy and welcome you, because we are not the ones who eventually had some white nights thinking about all the problems to solve. So thank you a lot, Pierre-François, and I'm thinking also about Julie and Anne and Sylvie, people you've seen at the welcome station this morning to get your badges and so on. And please, and I hope you enjoy these 2 days. I know I will. I actually decided to stay in Sète instead of driving back home so that I can drink with you. I did last night, I will do tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. And finally, we are presenting Laurent. Oh, I'm terrible with the names, sorry. Laurent, I can say your name.
No problem, thank you. Laurent Dagorn. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for being here. I'm really happy, and as Benoit said, Benoit was the one who raised his hand saying, oh, we can do that in France. And then after he said, we can do that in Montpellier. And then he came back to me because we worked together under this key initiative of Muse of Montpellier. And he said, okay, what do you think about doing that in your lab? And I said, oh, it's a kind of great opportunity, but of course we had to find the best place and we had to find a good person, as he said, who could do that. But it was a very good opportunity that Benoit offered us, Marbec. So just a few words about Marbec and then a few words about where we are here. Marbec stands for Marine Biodiversity Exploitation and Conservation. And basically we are a research lab that is working on marine biodiversity and all different kind of uses that can be done on marine biodiversity. So we gather around 280 people, scientists, and from the University of Montpellier, but also from Ifremer, from the Institute of Research for Development, IRD, and from the CNRS, because I don't know if you're aware, but in France, the different research labs are actually mixed, because the idea is to gather scientists from different institutions, but they can work together on the same kind of topics. And this is what we do here. And the reason why Benoit, one of the reasons why Benoit suggested Marbec is because we are the only research lab in Montpellier that is only working on marine science. So it's one of the reasons. We have 20 other research labs that work partly on marine science, but we are the only ones who are fully dedicated to marine science. So we work at all the different levels of organization of the marine biodiversity, and we work also on sustainable fisheries and sustainable aquaculture. I'm not going to develop the different kind of research we do. You will have a movie describing, a 3-minute movie describing Marbec displayed on the screen in the corridor. And when Benoit proposed Marbec to host, I explained you why he had this idea, and also because we are very good friends. But the second thing was to find a place. And actually you are here, as Maria said, in a new building that was opened in March this year. And 1.5 years ago, when we discussed about this with Benoit, of course, this building was not built completely. We had this idea of this building actually 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, we went to discuss with the region Occitanie and all different stakeholders, the government of France. And we proposed we need a new building for 3 different things. One is to be able to host conferences like you, but also to host events where we will have not only scientists, and you are the example, and not only the people who will communicate, but also the stakeholders. And the idea was really to have a place where we could gather together people who care about the ocean. And this is the main objective of this room here. The second room you see here is now empty, but is to host private companies that develop research projects with us scientists. So actually next month you will see some private companies that will enter here and will set in this part of the building. And this is also important for us to have joint projects with some stakeholders. And the very last one, the third A, is about biologging, marine biologging. And you have Marc Soria here who is responsible for this marine biologging. Biologging is what? It's about instrumenting marine animals so that we can observe their movements, and they can also observe the oceanography for us because they can carry out some instruments. So this explains where you are here. And before finishing, I would like again to thank Pierre-François Benet, because without Pierre-François, I think it would be very difficult and we would not have this conference here. And I would like to say that I'm really impressed by the fact that you are so many in this room here to discuss about science communication. I will tell you that as a scientist, our job is really to improve the knowledge. But you know, I'm sometimes telling some of my researchers that we are not working for ourselves, because sometimes, you know, we are so passionate that what is driving us is to improve our own knowledge, our personal knowledge, because we want to improve who we are as scientists. So we are really trying to improve our knowledge. Then we organize scientific conferences, because then we want to share the knowledge that we found to the other scientists. So the communication between scientists is quite efficient. But then after, you realize, and many times I tell the researchers that if we are here, if we are paid by our governments, it's really to improve the knowledge of the entire society. And this is something that researchers don't do, and we are not good at it. We are good at developing some new knowledge, but not to transferring this knowledge to the society. And this is what you are doing. And I can tell you that it's very, very important for us, because it's really something that is not a part of our competencies. We are very bad at this. And I think it's essential. Otherwise, it's like if you just have a small part of what research should be. So thank you very much for what you're doing, and thank you very much for participating to this conference.
Thank you, Laurent. So many thanks to all of you. And now we are going to start with our free talks from our keynote speakers. One of them is very famous now because we have he's been named before. He's Jan Seys. He works. He comes from the Flanders Marine Institute, Blitz. He is a member of the European Marine Board's Communications Panel, and he's been the chair for Future Science Brief for Marine Science Communication in Europe. And there's a sentence in his CV I always like that is saying he is a marine citizen science believer, a practitioner. So the floor is yours, Jan.
Thanks a lot, Carmen, for introducing me and the European Marine Board Communications Panel. Thanks, Jill, for all these nice words. And you all know communication is also about languages. So, that's why, if you allow me, I would like to say a few words in the language of Molière. Donc, je voudrais bien dire merci, merci beaucoup à tous les organisateurs ici pour que 8 années après la première édition de CommOCEAN en Portugal, 2014, que nous soyons toujours réunis ici, à Sète, pour cette conférence. Oui, merci beaucoup. Formidable, c'est vraiment formidable. Et si vous me permettez, je continue dans la langue de Shakespeare. Ça va plus facile pour moi. Yes, marine science communication in Europe, that's what we will talk about. And I will do that on behalf of the full panel, the European Marine Board Communications panel. And we have some recommendations for you. And how did we do it? Because I will not give you a comprehensive overview of the state of the art of marine science communication. We do not pretend to have that full overview. We have a way forward, not the way forward. And we actually organized some surveys to make it happen. And then we made an analysis of those surveys. And 2 focused on the visibility of ocean news today. So we looked at where do we see the news, the scientific news, the knowledge, how do you notice it, why do you notice it, and things like that. So we had a poll to experts, 80 experts, different backgrounds from all over Europe. You see 16 countries have been involved. The same with 1,860 students. Yes, the youth is also extremely important, next generation. So we polled them as well, similar question, 13 countries. And we had some ideas coming out of these 2 quite big surveys. But we also wanted to know something more about the capacity. What about the capacity of science communication in our institutes, in the European Marine Board institutes? How much is it? Is it enough? And all together, we worked it out with the working group, the European Marine Board Communications Panel, and thanks to the efforts they also did in many of the countries, we can show you some results. But before doing that, I like to remind you all that if we do science communication or communication or whatever, do never forget why we do it. It's extremely important. If you have no goal, probably you will not be successful. And yes, we might think as scientists, of course, that we are all fascinated or communicate. We are all fascinated by science. We are fascinated by knowledge. We are fascinated by see how the world is working, how everything is interconnected, how biodiversity is taking a place in the middle of all what is happening. Facts and figures. I like the F words. Yes. So you can produce as a scientist a map like that is showing, in the words of Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General, last week in Sharm el-Sheikh, the COP27, that our world is burning and drowning. And yes, it is. And this is, of course, not tomorrow, but it's a global map showing how it would look like if all the ice that is on land would melt. Then you would end up with a 70-meter sea level rise and countries looking like that. This is nice. This is good. We have to provide the data as scientists, make sure that policy can do something with it. But probably this is not enough. Because what do you do with your citizens that get all those news, all that doomsday news that can bring them hopeless, that can discourage them, that avoid that they will take the steps, behavioral change, make sure that it really happens, we have to also take into account their feelings, another F word. Yes, the perceptions of the public, link up, bridge the gap with the public is extremely important. And let me just tell you a story. A few years ago, a lady in her early 50s stepped into my office. And she was carrying the burden of a great loss. And it has something to do with science communication. Actually, her 2 sons went for a swim in South Africa. They were in a lodge nearby, and nobody in the lodge ever informed them about the rip currents that were there in that area. And yes, one of them drowned. She blamed the lodge. She filed a court case. She started a non-profit organization to create more awareness about marine safety and swimming at sea. We worked together many years with that lady, but that did not bring her son back. This is also science communication, or lack of science communication there. And I know we live in hard times today. There's war, there's energy crisis, there's sea level rise, there's plastic all over. You really get discouraged sometimes. And that's the last thing we need. We don't need a public that is losing every sign of hope. We have to make sure they still want to fight, they want to change behavior, they want to do something, and science has a role to play. Maybe we should also provide solutions when we come with news and facts. And of course, we never have to twist the figures and the facts. They are facts, we are scientists. But try also to add the solutions. That's extremely important. And maybe sometimes we can also come up with some light-hearted news. It doesn't have to be always bad news. Huh? Why not humor? I can tell you one of the best science communication activities we ever co-organized in Belgium is this one. It's now a European Championship goal screeching. Yes, yes. And I will explain you why it has something to do with science. So what happens? It's actually a guy from another institution in Belgium, and he was thinking those urban seagulls. Quite a lot of people find them very annoying. It's a nuisance. They make noise, they open these dust bags, and they create a lot of dirty things on the road. And so how can we create more sympathy for the seagulls? Because they are an essential part of the coastline. Can you imagine a coastline without the sounds of a seagull? Of course not. So he said, let's challenge people to come on stage and to behave like a seagull and to cry and shout and call like a seagull. So now it's a European Championship, and I can tell you, this has had impact up to the USA and Canada on the radio, more than every other action we have ever done in the last 20 years. Because it bridged the gap between what people know about something from the sea and what science can offer. And maybe we will start doing some research on the language of gulls, seagulls in the future. Yeah, why not? What do they say to each other? Very interesting. And if you thought that this has something to do with science, I challenge you to try to mimic the cry of a seagull. It's quite difficult. I can't do it. And if you want to do it, you have to observe the seagulls very well. And what are scientists doing? Observation, exactly. Okay, let me come up with my recommendations. There are 9. One of them is, yes, we need more capacity. If we ask the students and the experts if they see more ocean use today than before, they say yes. If we ask them what they expect in the future, 90% say it will keep on growing. That's a perception. Okay, are we ready for that? Now we have a capacity at our institutes of 2.2% of the staff at the European Marine Board Institutes are dealing with communication, outreach, education, video making, social media, name it, only 2.2%. If the ocean use will grow, somebody will have to do it. So we say what we need is a 5% instead of a 2.2. Some institutes have even more than 5 today, so there's of course a difference. And if you take into account the time that also the scientists already involved into science communication, that figure should be like 10%. That's what we recommend. 2, maybe at least in some places we have to change the culture. I still find places of people saying, okay, we are scientists, don't bother us with this communication stuff, that's for other people, that's not up to us. And then they treat science communication as an afterthought. They do their studies and then they leave it there with the communicators. We feel strongly that there's a need for a sense of priority and to value science communication the way it should be. I'm not saying that we should move priorities for the researchers to science communication, of course not. But at least having some basic skills to be able to talk to the public as a scientist, this is how we should do. We don't live in ivory towers anymore. We should not live in ivory towers. And yes, I mentioned that, the positive side to all the doomsday news we have to bring. Don't try to worry people only, but provide them with solutions. If we ask, and we did in the poll, why did they notice the ocean news? Students and experts, they say, okay, sometimes it's because it's worrying and scary and it helps. Well, helps, yeah, between brackets. It draws attention. But in the same amount, also 42%, is because the news is inspiring and is bringing something new. You see, it's in balance. We should keep that balance. Don't bring only negative news and add solutions. We need a baseline, and I think we have a baseline. What I have been talking on shows clearly that the knowledge has to connect with what people feel and perceive and see, and that's ocean literacy. That's nothing new. That's something we embraced for the last 10 years, 20 years, if you take into account the movement in the US. So yes, we have to line up with what the public is thinking about the ocean, make sure they see what is their impact on the ocean and what is the impact of the ocean on human beings. That's ocean literacy. We have a baseline. Let's use it. Training. CommOCEAN. Yes, we need training. Scientists, communicators, everyone involved needs to be trained. And I'm so happy that, again, we are here together, 5th time. But let me be honest. Again, we found very good hosts to have all this happening here. Thanks again, but this is not structurally funded. So next time, we have to find another host who is willing to do that. We might find one, but for such an important thing, there should be a structural way to make it happen every 2 years at least. And I think it's not enough to have one conference every 2 years on marine science communication. Let's also, in between, make sure that we share expertise. We can have tools, databases, directories, whatever, where we put the best practices all together. So that, for instance, you work at a smaller institute, you don't have a full team to discuss among each other about how you could communicate something, that at least you can rely on those tools. Find best practices, learn from each other, don't have to reinvent the wheel. So that's another recommendation we make. And yes, technology. It's been said before, if we ask students where they get their news from, it's from social media, mainly other digital means. That's technology, of course, television also, schools. And if we ask them if they believe that future new technologies such as VR and things like that will help to communicate ocean science, they say yes, definitely. And maybe that's again a difference between the back of the room and the first rows, but if we ask the experts, who are mostly a bit older, they say, yes, that's good, but don't forget the traditional methods. Hands-on training, still a very good format. Storytelling is probably the most important one. If we have a good story, then we can bridge gaps. Connect with other marine science communicators, that's what we do now. Connect with other science communicators, connect with other communicators, even connect with marketeers. We can learn from them. They sell something, we sell something. A message, but we sell something. And yes, and that's a seamless connection to the next presentation. This is the right time to make it happen. Never before there has been such an opportunity. I can only emphasize that. By 2030, we have the UN Ocean Decade, who wants to solve some of the big challenges we have at the multilateral level and at the UL level. We also have the mission, of course, Mission Ocean, restore ocean and inland waters by 2030. This will probably not happen again. So take this opportunity. In a nutshell and in conclusion, these are the 9 recommendations. If you want to have the full details, they are there in the publications. Thanks for already introducing that. And I would say thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Jan. It's always a pleasure hearing from you. Maybe we can have one question. If anyone wants to say anything. I think really are in the moment. Yes, your final slide is exactly that. So maybe we can move on to our next presentation. Again, I need the glasses. I'm too old. So that's why I'm in the first row, not at the end of the room. So our next speaker is Vinicius Lindoso. He was going to talk about communicating the United Nations Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. He works as communication officer at UNESCO, Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, and he promotes the coordination and mobilization of diverse actors around the United Nations Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. Welcome.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let me just get settled here. And it's great to be back at CommOCEAN. I haven't been to all 5 of them, but I've been to 4. So I guess that's a good personal record. And it's, I think, the only science communication conference that we have out there in the world that is specifically focused on the ocean. So there's a lot to say, and thanks a lot for the European Marine Board, for the communications panel, for everyone here today, for Montpellier, Ifremer, for the organizers. It's a great pleasure to have been for a long time as well associated with it on behalf of UNESCO, of the United Nations system, and of our biggest initiative, which is the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. For short, the Ocean Decade. It's a big name, so we'll try to keep it short for our aging memories. So I'm here to tell you 3 basic things about ocean science communication, the kind of communication that we think through the decade we can achieve, and the kind of communication that we need for achieving the ocean we want. It's nothing probably new, and in a room full of communication specialists, there's really nothing that I could say that would be new to a lot of you. So I'll just try and put in my own recollections and my own thoughts and my own experiences from the last pretty much 10 years that I've worked in this field. Again, disclaimer, I'm not a communication professional. I have no formation. I'm just a political buff that likes to write, and that's, I guess, why they hired me. And I had a sense of what science was and how it could be further distilled and communicated to the general public. And I think the first thing that was really hard for me was to change the culture about what it means to talk about the general public. Because when I was talking to scientists most of the time about who was the general public, they would think about someone completely irrelevant to, in any way, shape, or form, to their way of life. But then I started telling them, the general public is the minister that you're going to meet with next week to sell your plan for replanting mangroves around the coast of Portugal. General public is the ambassador that's coming to meet with our executive secretary to discuss funding for the tsunami alert systems. They are all general public because they are not in the science bubble. And I think a lot of what the Ocean Decade is trying to do is to get out of the bubble, and to get out of the bubble in important, systematic, and consistent ways. So I think that we've been for too long stuck in a way in a kind of ocean science communication that is trying to change beliefs rather than behavior. And I think that we have done as much of a good job as that kind of thinking will lead us. We've got icons in the ocean science communication field, a whole pantheon of them, from Jacques Cousteau to Sylvia Earle, Sir David Attenborough, you name it, all the way, I guess, to the present and to the guys on the back, Greta Thunberg and her youth movement. But how far can this take us? We now find ourselves with an ever-increasing, changing ocean, most of it not for good. We've got rising waters, we've got acidification, deoxygenation, we've got increasing number of tsunamis as a result of climate change. Have things changed so much with the result of all the ocean science communication that we have done in the last 10 years at the global level, talking to all the different publics, talking to all the different audiences that all of our communication strategies seem to target? I cannot answer that question. I think it's for each of us to think. And some may have a closer to yes answer than others. My answer for my work would probably be no. So I come to you with a sort of, and again, this is the third time that I'm addressing CommOCEAN about the Ocean Decade. And I would like this third time to be a marker for me professionally as well, to come and say a sort of mea culpa as to what we failed to do, but also with a hopeful and ambitious spirit as to what we can achieve and what we have started to achieve, not just through the Ocean Decade, that's just a UN framework, but through everything that everyone here in this room has been doing and will continue to do. So what is the kind of ocean science communications that I think we are missing? And when I say missing, it's not that it doesn't exist. I think it exists. I mean, just looking at Jan's presentation, it's there. Just hearing about what everyone has talked about today and what's on the program for the next 2 days, it's there. But I think it's there in bits and pieces and not necessarily coherently defined or understood and not systematically cataloged in a way that everyone can join in and that everyone can be a part of as a movement. And here is where the United Nations can come in as a sort of honest broker and as a sort of entity that can provide a framework that everyone doesn't have to follow, but can adapt to their specific needs in the regions, to specific language, and so on and so forth. I would hazard 3 arguments as for what is the communications that we are missing. I think we need a communications that is truly pragmatic. I think we need a communication that is demand-driven, driven by the public, and not unilaterally speaking to it. And I think we need a communications that is really, truly inclusive. To start with the pragmatic side of things, I'd like to tell you a really personal story. When I was 15, I was, I think, a freshman or a sophomore in the American School of Recife in Brazil. I think that's, I don't know what that transfers to the French system or to the systems of other countries. I'm always confused. I'm learning now. I have a 4-year-old, so now I know what a CP is. But I was 15, and I was, as I said, a sort of history and political geek, and I really wanted to participate in the student government. I was running for president of the student government against all the guys in the senior grades. So I was the young kid on the block, and I needed to find a way to, mark my platform, what I was going to do. The environment was not at all something I cared about back then. I was as far away from Greta Thunberg as there can be. Not proud of that, but that's what it was. And on the other hand, the school had started this recycling program. And the school was due for an audit. And we all know when things are due for an audit, we want to make sure that everything is crystal clean. And they wanted to show that the students were participating. And so I, in a sort of streak of very, stark political pragmatism, said, I'm going to become the green candidate. I'm going to be the guy who's going to take on this recycling thing, and I'm going to make people join. So I started changing from a campaign for student government into a recycling campaign around the whole school. What meant that I was invited to every single grade to talk about recycling. And of course, I would pitch in the fact that I was running for student government. No other candidate had that kind of visibility. Month afterwards, we had a successful audit. I think recycling rates went up starkly. I don't remember the numbers. The school was happy. I was elected president of the student government, the youngest ever. Seniors were really upset at me, but you have to make do. And I moved on with my life, or that was the idea. Okay, I'm going to drop off this environmental act now. It's all done with. But the fact is, for the next 2 years, I had to put up with every single kid in that school who couldn't have cared less about recycling a few weeks before, wanting all sorts of new environmental projects. First, it was an eco club. Then they wanted to plant mangroves along the side of the school because Recife is a city with a big mangrove area. Then it was about water and food waste, and so on and so forth. So I was in sort of the path-dependent prison of environmental activism. And I gradually became a truly green person. It didn't start out of passion. Didn't start because I was convinced that's what we needed. My opinion always was as, oh, it's up to the government to do stuff and we'll just follow along. It's up to the big companies. But it was only through that kind of work, through that first step, that I got into the path. So I think our comms, as I said, for too long, we've tried to use this iconography, these examples, to make people fall in love with the ocean, to make people fall in love with science, to make people understand from a very deep down in their hearts and minds that that's the right thing to do. But in working through all these years, and ever since that early experience, I've come to realize that it doesn't really matter so much what people believe in, as long as they are doing the right things. At least not at first. And I'm conscious that once you start doing the right things, you will organically convert into seeing how the benefits of that is bringing to you and to your community. So that's my first lesson. I think we should aim for a more pragmatic communications that changes behaviors rather than beliefs. I think that whatever beliefs had to be changed have been changed. We are now really in a life or death battle against disinformation, against fake news. Trust in science has decreased. After a big COVID spike where everyone was listening to scientists and thinking these guys are going to save us, we're back to even lower rates of trust in science than we were before. Of course, these are numbers that are a bit skewed because they're based on US, UK polls, but they illustrate something, and I think we should be heeding these messages. The second thing I want to say about communications is that we really need to listen to the public. And I'm really, really happy to be following, Jan's presentation, because that's something that is very stark clear as an example in the A Way Forward document. And it's really, really rare today for us as communicators to find data about what is our target public thinking. What does science mean for people out there, for students, for politicians? I don't know most of the time. I can think of only 3 studies today that exist at that kind of mass survey level. One of them, is Jan's already said. The other 2 is one for the UK, which was released in, I think, 2022, which was, I think, a partnership between DEFRA, Scotland, Wales, and Ocean Conservation. Which was also really massive. I think more than 10,000 people surveyed. And another one in Brazil, which I was happy to participate in with the Federal University of São Paulo and the philanthropy firm Boticário Group Foundation. Also, for the first time, we have a big picture of what do Brazilians think about ocean. And it's, in a way, a great thing to have, also a very depressing thing to see how much work we still have to do. So when I come and tell you, I think that I have failed more than I have succeeded in the last 10 years. I don't tell you this just because, oh, I want to do a mea culpa, and because for once someone comes and say, okay, we failed. No, this is based on data. This is based on talking to people outside of our bubble, calling people who have never, ever talked to a scientist, have ever cared for any news about ocean or the environment. And I think we need to do more of that if we want our communications to be really well targeted. And third, I think we need a communications that is, and I'll just move here because I was so excited with my speech that I forgot to go through my slides. I think it really needs to be truly inclusive. And I think if of all of these, inclusivity has been the biggest regret that I have, not being able to fully accomplish. Of course, we try, and we keep trying. We try to include more languages. Within the UN, we have 6 official languages, but if you ask me how many times do we have documents that get out in the 6 official languages, I can count on the name of my fingers, on the fingers of my hand. Not to mention all the other things, gender, sexuality, race, culture, class. And we have to be aware that who we are here, who we generally speak to, is just, it may be a majority of the world, but there's a major part of it missing. For example, the 700 million people around the world who wouldn't be able to understand me because they only understand sign language. And I know that Carmen is working on some projects in that regard, and it's great, but we need to do it everywhere. Or the fact that I think only 30% of the world speaks English, I think. If that much. So most people in the world today would not be able to understand my talk. So what are we doing really comprehensively every day to solve that? And of course it needs money, and it's always about money and time. We finish that publication super late to release, and we don't have time to translate it into other languages, don't have the money to do it. So I think given the state of the situation, the only answer is collaboration. And we have shown through the decade that collaboration works. I don't know if everyone here knows, but within the Ocean Decade, we have a communications advisory group. Now it's become the Strategic Communications Group. And we have some members of the group here today. I can see Fiona, there's Ronaldo, I think Meta is here as well. And they've been truly terrific in pestering me all the time about these things. And that's their role, to advise the United Nations Secretary on the Ocean Decade, to make sure that we have a truly effective and inclusive communications. And more than just pointing out what we were missing or how we could make it better, they were also always eager to help, and to help with translations, and to help with adding some gender mainstreaming, and so on. And I think that's truly valuable and truly the kind of collaboration that we should be looking toward. We only have CommOCEAN every 2 years. As Ian said, it's not enough. So what do we do? Where do we meet? Where do we meet online when we leave Sète? So I would like to invite you to join the Ocean Decade, not just as sort of a UN resolution. That part doesn't really matter. That part is just to get the Ocean Decade out there. What matters is that we have now a Ocean Decade network. You just go to forum.oceandecade.org, which has a dedicated group for Ocean Decade communicators, and communicators from all sorts of strands, and for artists and for media, to meet and exchange ideas. But of course, it's only as useful as there are members in it, and active people, and active exchange of ideas. I think we are at the beginning of the process. We have 8 years to go, and I'm sure there will be a follow-up to the Ocean Decade somehow. But the moment to create that kind of traction, to create the kind of communications that we need for the ocean we want, the moment to really raise the bar and plant the seeds for creating a generation ocean. Once generation alpha, is done, it's now. And so I'd like to invite everyone to join the movement. And I'm here next 2 days to talk. So come to me. I'm happy to exchange. I hope there are other people who can also inform about the Ocean Decade who have been involved somehow. It's an open invitation to improve what we do and to get the word out in the right way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vinny, for a fantastic talk. We are a bit late, so I'm leaving the floor to our next speaker. They're going to talk about the Master of Scientific. Again, I forgot, because I feel young, but I'm not. Sorry. Master of Scientific Communication at the University of Montpellier. We have Federica Cailler here. Sorry for the surnames.
Thank you very much. First, I must apologize because I'm not a marine scientist. I'm currently working on parasitology in freshwater systems, so sorry for that. Together with Frédéric, our teachers are the Department of Biology Ecology at the Faculty of Sciences in Montpellier. We are very happy to be here with our students. Yes.
Okay. So I'm Frédéric Cailler. I'm lecturer at University of Montpellier. I have a PhD in Oceanography, and I am in lab Marbec. And I have also a master degree in museography in science.
Thank you. I will first present the Master of Scientific Mediation, which is quite old. We consider that a scientific mediator is an intermediate between sciences and societies. So he or she will be able to understand and analyze scientific contents, to update his knowledge, to understand methods and approaches, and to know the processes of science. And he or she also be able to communicate on science and to adapt to different publics. So he or she will take into account societal problems and debates. Based on this, we consider that our formation is based on solid skills in biodiversity, ecology, and evolution, and also biostatistics, and students are very happy to do biostatistics. So they have a good scientific level, and they are able to search and make synthesis of the scientific information. And we also work on professionalization, on communication by different ways, on animation, museology, and participatory sciences. And one of the most important things is to form persons with open mind, with autonomy and adaptability. The staff is composed of different persons from the University of Montpellier, and professionals who work on different structures, and some of them are graduates from our master. Well, this one is in French. I was unable to modify it, but it is to show the diversity of field of activities of our graduates. Our graduates are in different parts of France and also in different parts of the world, so I think they can discuss with several persons here and to find future jobs or internships. Here I put some examples of professional opportunities for our students and our graduates. For instance, director in research and mediation in a cave or in another structures, scientific mediators or animators, responsible for scientific information or scientific communication or pedagogy, responsible of environmental sectors, project managers in environment or responsible for education to sustainable development. So thank you very much. I will give the...
So I will present you the specialty communication and education to biodiversity. This is a specialty of a master degree in environmental management that name EGE. So this specialty is a part of a master in environmental management. There is, in this master, there is 5 specialty. This is sustainable aquaculture, engineering in ecology and biodiversity management, research in conservation, integrated management of the environment, biodiversity and territories, and so communication and education in biodiversity. This specialty I developed in 2021 is to form a professional of communication and education to biodiversity who are also expert are in science, ecology and biodiversity. This is because of environmental issues and because you know of the collapse of biodiversity. It is also because of that. This is a figure extract from an article of Frontiers who speak about discrepancy in climate change versus biodiversity coverage in the media compared to scientific literature. So, you can see that media coverage of climate change was up to 8 times higher compared to biodiversity. This discrepancy could not be explained by the different scientific outputs between the 2 issues. Climate change media coverage was often related to specific events, whereas no such indication of the connection was found in the case of biodiversity. An international communication strategy is so urgently to develop, required to raise public awareness on biodiversity. That's why we develop the specialty of masters to form professional communicators who have skills in science, ecology and biology. The target professions for our students here in University of Montpellier is responsible for communication of an environmental education in protected natural area, responsible for communication or natural education in the direction of ecological transition of local authorities, biodiversity communication officer in association or non-governmental organization, consultant in environmental biodiversity communication, or responsible for environment in public and private organization. The educational contents is ecology of conservation, data processing, survey methodology, environmental law, biodiversity inventory tools, so lots of ecological skill, but also communication about general communication, but also expography, museography, video creation, web page management, pedagogy, psychology of communication, and a different skill, so that we can say that our students have dual training, science and communication. The educational approach is student project, such as study of biodiversity of a territory, ecology fair, stop motion, film motion, production, exhibition, and also long-term internship, 5 or 6 months. There is possibility of traditional education, but also enterprise learning. So, for some example of different of their products, they can write in review, like Frontiers for Young Minds. So this is an article which have been produced with scientific articles from Marbeck, and this was for students. They produce also stop-motion movies, and you can see that there is some studies. We have YouTube channel to put our their movies about eelgrass, about lots of these movies come from scientific articles from Marbeck too. So there is some lots of aquatical movies. Sorry? Yeah. There's also exhibitions. They participate to exhibition. This is an exhibition on eelgrass, who was in France, through some France and to Bordeaux, and now the exhibition is in Canada. It is at Halifax, and it will be at Vancouver for the Impact 5 conference. Yes, and this is things a little pedagogical utilities with exhibition. Thank you.
Just a quick word. Thanks, Frédéric and Sylvie. And we asked Frédéric and Sylvie to present you in a very short period of time what they do and the kind of formation that is organized for these young people in the back over there. And it's only some of them actually. Some others are actually in lectures right now in Montpellier. So I want to emphasize that again. The idea to bring these students here is to share with you, to exchange with you. So for the students, please don't be shy. Yeah. Nobody is bad. Well, hopefully. There is no psychopath in the room, hopefully. And for us, for the older people and the experts, please encourage them to not to be shy. It's very important, I think. There is this, probably a lot of you are familiar with the wedge concept, where it's about what you can do, for instance, for climate change, either as a citizen or as a scientist or as a governmental body or as a company. Each of us has somewhere a wedge in the pie chart. And regardless of the size of the wedge, there is always something you can do. There is, for instance, in France these days, there's this perception that, France is responsible for about maybe less than 1% of greenhouse emissions, so why should we bother, what the fuck? I mean, it's in the hands of Chinese and American and Indian people, and we don't have to deal with it. This is so fucking wrong. And well, communicating with the young people, it's also a little wedge, but it's a very important one.